Welcome to the very first ever episode of How Not to Fuck Up Your 20s. My name is Daniel, and this first episode is going to be about how I got kicked out of Ciro. The point of this podcast and why I'm shooting it is to try and inspire people to, in their 20s specifically, to have more meaningful failures and to go out there and really try to figure things out and do things and live to the fullest, even though times right now can seem very rocky. And I want you to know just time has always felt rocky for whoever is living through it. That's never going to change, and so you shouldn't stop trying to live just because you think that right now is this particularly rocky time or a particularly tough moment in history. And it very well could be, but every moment in history has something that is special and makes it particularly challenging in its own way. So let's jump right into the story about how I got kicked out of Ciro. So this story starts with a passport. And this passport isn't a regular U.S. passport. This is actually a jet black diplomatic passport. And I was so very proud of this passport. I got issued it in 2016, and I was going to go and serve across 3 embassies over the next 3 years. And this was my very, very first photo that I have ever gotten for a ID of any sort that I actually loved. I loved this photo that I had on there. I was so proud of it. And this passport was awesome when I finally got posted to my first post in Africa, Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire, or Ivory Coast. It on the flight down from, I believe, Belgium into the Ivory Coast, I was upgraded to first class because I had this diplomatic passport, and that was really cool. And so I love this passport. I show up to the embassy and throughout the next year, I'll be posted there. It's going to be hot, it's going to be humid, it's going to be trashy, and the air quality is going to be very poor. And that's just the reality of this post that I have. Over the next couple months, we go through several leadership changes. And these leadership changes are very unusual. Rarely will you ever have one, but I ended up with having 3. The one that actually matters for this story is the very last one that came in. For anybody that is in the military or has been in the military, I was in the MSG program, so going and working at the embassies. And this guy was a 5-year staff sergeant. He hit his 5-year mark and then was promoted to a staff sergeant. And his last post was Cairo, Egypt. And he came in and was telling us all these wonderful things that he'd done, all these cool things that they'd been able to go do while in Cairo, and how inexpensive it was. This really sold me on the idea. I had been there for about 10 months at that point, and I really, really wanted to get out and do something other than what we were doing, which was pretty much nothing there. There was almost nothing to go see or do without actually going quite far away. So you might as well just take leave and go. And I had quite a few leave days. And so I finally decided I'm going to take some type of trip while I'm in Africa and go see some other part of Africa. And I decide, after he told us all these wonderful stories, that I'm going to go to the pyramids. I'm going to go to the pyramids, and then I'm going to go and see what else is there. Maybe there's a casino, there's some food, there was some, water, boat stuff that he had talked about, like these boats that you could get on, and then they're all you can eat food and just really cool stuff that you could go and do. And I decided that sounds awesome. I'm going to take 5 days and go do that. So I buy the tickets, I talk to him and everything, and I try to figure out all the travel plans. Do I need a visa to get in there? Do I have my yellow fever pass or my yellow card? So when you go into Africa, many parts of Africa, you have to have all your shots. So I figured out everything that I needed and asked him about it all. And he was like, yep, you're going to be good. I'm going to sign off on your paperwork so that you can go on this 5 days of leave and go see the pyramids. Anyways, I get on the flight. We land in Tunis first, I believe, and then from Tunis to Cairo airport. And this airplane lands, and we finally get off and load onto this bus that then takes us to the terminal where they're all going to check our passports. And I go in there, and I see several lines that are booked full of people already trying to get into their, get their passports checked. And I see the diplomatic line, and there's only 4 people in it. And I'm like, I have a diplomatic passport. I'm going to go through this line. This is going to make me get through this line so much faster. And I get up to the guy, and I hand him my passport, and he looks at it, And he does that whenever you've handed somebody your passport and they flip through it to see if the visa's there. This guy's a pro. He does this every day, all day. And so he's flipping through these pages, and by the time he gets to the end of it, you can see the look on his face that he's not found what he's looking for. And he flips through it again. And then he looks up at me. It says, "So what are you doing here? And where's your visa?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm here on vacation, and yeah, I'm just coming to come and see the pyramids, and I'm going to be here for 5 days." And he doesn't like that response, clearly. And he waves over and brings over another security guard who then flips through it again. And they tell me, "Okay, no, you don't have a visa. We can't let you in." And I'm like, "No, but I should be able to come in. I was told that I was able to come in by somebody who was already here who worked at the embassy." And at that moment, that's when everything started to spiral. And I still remember sitting on that bench right outside the booth for what must have been an hour while I waited to get some security guard, who then I would spend the next, I believe, 2 days with. And yeah, that was a not good moment, waiting there, wondering what's going to happen. I don't have access to any internet. I don't have access to my phone because I just landed. I don't have a SIM card. I can't contact anyone. And I'm sitting there wondering what in the world I'm going to do. And they finally take me over to this holding room. It's not very big. You could probably fit maybe 100 people in it. And they put me in there. Nobody's there right now except for me. And they tell me to wait. And I'm not so much a fan of that because I can't contact anyone. Nobody knows where I'm at. And I need to get a SIM card. So I start looking around. I'm like, oh, I can walk over there and go to this terminal and buy the SIM card that I need. I see a kiosk. I walk out there, and the security guards flip out. They come running at me and stop me and start yelling something in Arabic. And from there, they take me back, and I finally convince them to let me go to this kiosk, get this SD card, so that I can contact someone at the U.S. Embassy in Cairo to try and get this figured out. Finally convinced them to let me go get this SD card, and I go in and I'm able to call the embassy, and the guy that picks up the phone, it's a Friday, is pretty much somebody who would have been me if I would have been working in the Cairo area, so doing internal security. He says, "Okay, I'll pass you on to the duty officer and the deck commander, and we'll figure out what we can get done." An hour later, I get a phone call back from them. I'm like, "Hey, what's up? What's your situation?" "Oh, yeah, the guy who told you all of this is an absolute idiot, and we're really glad that he's not here anymore, but we're really sorry that he told you completely wrong. We're going to try and get this figured out." All right, wonderful news. That's fantastic. I go and sit down for a while and kind of wait to see what they can figure out, and I get a phone call about 30 minutes later telling me, "Hey, we're sorry. Everybody from the embassy is already gone. We can't do anything for you." So unfortunate, but is what it is. So I tell the security guards, and they're not terribly happy about that either. And I'm not terribly happy about that. And about this time, there is a flight. I can't remember where it was going or what had happened specifically internationally. There had been some incident, and it was kind of one of these things where people couldn't enter a certain country, and one of their layover flights happened to be going through that country, and they were no longer allowed to take that flight. So they were stuck there with me in limbo until they could get a separate flight that flew around this no-fly zone for them. It is now cramped there. There's way too many people in this small little holding area, and the guard that has been walking me around is nowhere to be seen. And I'm trying to figure out what to do as everything just sinks in that I'm not going to go on vacation. I just bought these tickets. I'm really glad that I didn't pay for a hotel in advance or anything like that. An hour or two goes by, and it's just really sinking in that this isn't going to happen. I'm now stuck in a Cairo airport. So about 2 or 3 hours goes by, and the guard that has been walking me around at this point finally shows back up and tells me to come with him. I'm like, okay, what's going on? I pack up my laptop into my bag and everything, and I go with him. And he takes me across the airport to the front terminal where there is a Tunis Air booth. I guess is the right word. I'm not exactly sure. He then talks to the guy at the booth and turns to me and says, hey, he's pulled up this ticket. You need to buy it so that you can leave right now. And I told, whoa. You could have at least told me this before we were coming over here. I then scramble very quickly, as fast as I can, to do a money conversion on this. And it turns out that the ticket that they wanted me to buy left in 8 hours and would cost me $6,000. And I was, no, hell no, I'm not doing that. There's no way. I would prefer to stay inside the airport for the next 4 days than lose pretty much what was almost 3 months worth of salary for me at that point. That was a massive chunk of change that he just flippantly said, buy this now so that you can leave. And I stonewalled and said, no, I'm not going to do that. I can find a better flight. And he says, no, you need to buy this. I'm like, no, I'm not buying this. And finally he gave in, and we go back, and I tell him, yes, I'm going to find a better flight that isn't absolutely ridiculous. There's no way you're going to make me buy that. So next I go back to the little room. There's no place to sit down, so I just stand there with my laptop and try to find a better flight. And it turned out there was a flight in about 36 hours that was through the Arab Emirates and then back to the Ivory Coast. And the price on this ticket was much better. It was only about $340. So that was totally doable. That was fine. All right. But I then had to spend the next 32 hours waiting for this flight inside a very cramped, with no space to even sit down and sleep or do anything like that until these guys left. And so I didn't get to go to sleep really until 4 in the morning when everybody started to clear out. Then they started to get flights out of there through whatever means they were getting arranged for them to actually make it home. So there I am, finally at 4 in the morning, lying down on these benches to get some amount of sleep. I haven't showered. It's not terribly fun, but at least I'm not spending $6,000 on a flight. So the next day I go and get some food at the kiosk. The guard follows me. Fine. All right. Come back, sit down, wait for the flight. It's about 2 hours before the flight, and I tell them, hey, I need to go catch this flight now. And so they walk me over across all these back rooms. There's people with prayer mats and everything, and it's like this. If you've ever gone to a place that is pretty much just made out of concrete, like much of Africa is, it had that very bare bones concrete painted feel across the entire back end of this airport. And they walk me through it all. A very unique experience, being somewhere that most people won't be inside the Cairo airport. And they take me to a final guard that will then flip through my passport and stamp it rejected. I believe entry denied, and then a whole bunch of Arabic words around the stamp. So my diplomatic passport had a rejected out of Cairo stamp in it, which was kind of interesting. Anyways, I'm able to then go and get this flight and land in the Arab Emirates in Dubai and actually get out for the 12-hour layover that I had there. And I ended up going to the Burj Khalifa and running into somebody who taught elementary school about a block away from where I grew up as a kid, which was absolutely fascinating, that I could be all the way across the world, and the only other American I met taught elementary school right next to where I grew up, which is absolutely fascinating. Anyways, I make it home, and I don't get charged for all the leave, and I would say going to the Burj Khalifa at that moment in my life was actually cooler than going to the pyramids. And that's my story about how I got kicked out of Cairo. Things to really take away from this story is to trust people, but also verify, because the people who might mean well might be an idiot, or they might actually know what they're talking about, and things have just simply changed since the last time they were going. There's so many cases where you really need to just trust but verify. I was so burnt out from work that I just wanted things to be easy and simple and just clip together and go, and I didn't want to. I ignored the advice from one of my good friends who said, yeah, you should probably get your civilian passport so that you can actually go travel to Cairo. And it was completely on me because I just didn't do enough research. I just wanted things to be easy, and it ended up costing me a vacation, ended up costing me money. So when you travel, especially if you're traveling to Africa, like make sure that your passport is good, make sure you have a visa, and make sure that if you need a yellow card, you have that yellow card. While I was working at the embassy in Abidjan, we had this lady who called us, hysterical. This lady was absolutely hysterical. She gives us this call and she's like, I'm in the airport and they have all these needles and they're wanting to poke me with them. And I told them no. And I was like, okay, so why are they wanting to poke you with these needles? It was because I didn't show up with my yellow card. I was like, well, you knew that you needed this yellow card, and they now, because you don't have any proof for them that you have these shots, they need to give you these shots as well. And she was freaking out. And I think eventually she got back on a plane and went back home because she didn't want these shots from them. But yeah, just doing what you need to do and not pushing it off is really key. Anyways, thank you so much for listening to How Not to Fuck Up Your 20s. My name is Daniel, and thank you for listening. I hope that this story has helped somebody in some meaningful way, and I hope for future podcast episodes to be even better than this. So thank you so much for listening, and take care.